The kitchen of Bellinate was alive with the controlled chaos that only a high-end restaurant could produce. Steam rose from multiple pots as Zara Williams moved between stations with the precision of a surgeon. Her dark skin glistened with sweat under the harsh kitchen lights, her chef's whites somehow still pristine despite the intensity of the dinner rush. 27 years old and already the head chef of one of Manhattan's most exclusive Italian restaurants, Zara had clawed her way up from washing dishes in her grandmother's soul food kitchen in Harlem to commanding a brigade of 12 chefs. Her hands, scarred from years of burns and cuts, moved with practiced confidence as she plated a perfect ossobuco, the marrow glistening like liquid gold. Marcus, her sous chef, appeared at her elbow. The older man's face was tight with concern. "You need to see this." Zara glanced up from her station. Through the small circular window in the kitchen door, she could see the dining room had fallen into an unusual hush. At the center table sat a man who commanded attention without saying a word. Alessandro Caruso. Even Zara, who cared more about her mise en place than gossip, knew that name. The Caruso family didn't just own restaurants. They owned judges, politicians, and according to whispers, half the construction contracts in New York. Alessandro himself was a study in contradictions, impeccably tailored in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Zara's monthly rent, with dark hair swept back from a face that would have been classically handsome if not for the thin scar running from his left eyebrow to his cheekbone. He was arguing with someone on his phone, his Italian accent sharp enough to cut glass even from across the room. "I don't care what excuse you have. Find me someone. The wedding is in 6 hours. 6. My grandmother will have both our heads if I show up alone to Cousin Valentina's ceremony." Zara turned back to her station. Rich people problems weren't her concern. She had 30 orders to get out before 9 o'clock. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. 20 minutes later, the kitchen door swung open with such force it nearly hit Marcus in the face. Alessandro Caruso stood in the doorway, and every conversation in the kitchen died instantly. You didn't walk into someone else's kitchen. It was an unspoken rule, a sacred boundary. "Who is the chef here?" Zara stepped forward, wiping her hands on her apron. Her 5'6" frame was dwarfed by his 6'2" presence, but she'd never been one to be intimidated. "I am. And this is my kitchen, which means you need to leave." Alessandro's dark eyes swept over her, taking in everything from her braids pulled back in a tight bun to the tattoo of a whisk and knife crossed on her forearm. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or calculation. "The risotto I just ate was perfect. Not too al dente, not mushy. The saffron ratio was exact. You made it?" Zara crossed her arms. "I oversee everything that leaves this kitchen." He took a step closer. The entire kitchen staff had stopped working, watching this exchange like it was a tennis match. "You're not married. No ring." "Excuse me? And you have tonight off after service ends at 10. "I checked with the owner." Zara felt heat rising in her chest, and it had nothing to do with the ovens. "You checked? Who do you think you are?" Alessandro reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather wallet, extracting a black American Express card. "I need a date to a wedding. It starts at midnight. You'll be back home by sunrise. I'll pay you $10,000 for 6 hours of your time." The kitchen erupted in whispers. $10,000. Zara's mind raced. That was 3 months of rent. That was the new mixer she'd been eyeing. That was her student loans payment for half a year. "Are you insane? I don't even know you." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "I'm a man in a very complicated situation who needs someone sophisticated enough to handle my family, smart enough not to embarrass me, and detached enough not to get attached. You run a kitchen of this caliber. You can handle anything. And frankly, you're the first person I've met tonight who hasn't cowered or fawned." Zara should have said no, should have thrown him out, should have gone back to her lamb chops that were probably overcooking right now. Instead, she heard herself say, 15,000. "And I choose what I wear." Alessandro's lips curved into the barest hint of a smile. "Done. I'll have a car pick you up at 11:30. The black Mercedes pulled up to Zara's apartment building in Harlem at exactly 11:30. She'd gone home after service, showered away the smell of garlic and thyme, and stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes before settling on the only dress she owned that didn't come from a thrift store. A deep emerald wrap dress her sister had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. The driver didn't speak during the hour-long ride to the Caruso estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Zara watched the city lights give way to sprawling mansions, her stomach knotting tighter with each mile. What had she agreed to? The estate was massive, with a circular driveway packed with luxury cars and valets in crisp uniforms. As soon as Zara stepped out, she felt eyes on her. A woman in a silver gown whispered to her companion, both pairs of eyes tracking Zara's every move. Alessandro appeared at the top of the marble steps, now wearing a three-piece navy suit that fit him like it had been painted on. He descended quickly, his expression unreadable. "You came. You're paying me $15,000. Of course I came." His hand found the small of her back as he guided her toward the entrance. The touch was proprietorial, designed for the watching crowd. "Listen carefully. My grandmother will ask questions. We met 6 months ago at the restaurant. You've been traveling for work, which is why the family hasn't met you yet. Keep it simple." Before Zara could respond, they were inside. The wedding reception was already in full swing. Crystal chandeliers, a 12-piece orchestra, tables laden with food that probably cost more than Zara's car. But it wasn't the opulence that made her breath catch. It was the stares. Every head in the room seemed to turn their direction. Conversations stuttered and stopped. An elderly woman in black Chanel raised her opera glasses, studying Zara like she was a specimen under a microscope. Alessandro's hand tightened on her back. "Smile. You're supposed to be in love with me." "That's not in the contract," Zara muttered. But she forced her lips into something approximating happiness. A woman in an ivory dress materialized in front of them. She was beautiful in that careful, expensive way. Blonde highlights, perfect makeup, tennis bracelet that caught the light with every gesture. Her blue eyes went cold the moment they landed on Zara. "Alessandro, how unexpected. I heard you were bringing someone, but I didn't realize you were so adventurous in your choices." The word hung in the air like poison. "Natasha." Alessandro's voice could have frozen water. "This is Zara Williams." "Zara, this is Natasha Rossi. She works for my uncle's law firm." Natasha's smile was all teeth, no warmth. "A chef. How quaint. Tell me, dear, do you even own formal wear? Or did Alessandro have to buy that dress for you? It must be so difficult being out of your element." Zara felt the blood drain from her face, but before she could respond, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Natasha, I see your manners haven't improved since law school." An elderly woman approached, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, wearing a black dress adorned with pearls that probably cost more than a small house. Despite her age, her posture was ramrod straight, her dark eyes sharp and assessing. "Nana." Alessandro's entire demeanor shifted, respect and genuine affection softening his features. The matriarch of the Caruso family studied Zara with an intensity that made the younger woman feel transparent. "So this is the girl who has kept my grandson's attention for 6 months. The one he speaks of but never brings home." Zara's mind raced. This was the test. The reason Alessandro needed her here. "Mrs. Caruso, it's an honor to meet you. Alessandro has told me so much about you." The old woman's eyebrow arched. "Has he? And what exactly has he said?" "That you came to America with nothing but a suitcase and a rolling pin. That you built your first restaurant kitchen by hand with your husband. That you never forgot where you came from, even when everyone else did." Something shifted in the grandmother's expression. The room had gone silent again, but this time Zara didn't care. She was tired of being looked at like she didn't belong. "I grew up in my grandmother's kitchen too. She made the best peach cobbler in Harlem. Taught me that food isn't just about technique or fancy ingredients. It's about soul. About remembering who you are while reaching for who you want to become." Mrs. Caruso's lips curved into the first genuine smile Zara had seen all night. "Walk with me, child." As they moved away from the crowd, Alessandro caught Zara's eye. She couldn't read his expression, but there was something there. Surprise, maybe even admiration. The old woman led her to a quieter corner of the ballroom. You're not what I expected when Alessandro said he was finally bringing someone. Natasha was convinced he would come crawling back to her. Zara glanced back at the blonde woman, who was watching them with barely concealed fury. I'm not here to play games, Mrs. Caruso. Good. The Caruso family has enough games. What we need is someone real. The old woman's hand, weathered but strong, clasped Zara's. My grandson wears many masks, but when he speaks of your cooking, I hear something in his voice I haven't heard in years. Passion. Tell me, do you love him? The question hung in the air. Zara opened her mouth, then closed it. The honest answer would ruin everything. But something about this woman demanded truth. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A man's voice, slurred with alcohol, rang out across the ballroom. Alessandro Caruso, you think you can just replace me? After everything my family has done for yours? The man stumbling through the crowd was in his mid-30s. His expensive suit rumpled, his tie loosened. 2 security guards moved to intercept him, but he shoved past them with surprising strength. Marco. Alessandro's voice was low, dangerous. You need to leave. Marco Benedetti. Zara remembered the name from whispered conversations in the kitchen. Alessandro's former business partner, the man who tried to steal from the family and paid the price. Leave? Marco laughed bitterly. You destroyed my life, took everything, and now you parade around with her? He pointed at Zara, his finger wavering. Some random black girl you probably picked up off the street to make Natasha jealous? The slur hung in the air like smoke. Zara felt every eye in the room turn to her, waiting to see if she would crumble. But Zara Williams had spent her entire life proving she belonged in spaces that told her she didn't. She'd faced kitchen bullies, racist suppliers, and customers who asked to speak to the real chef. This drunk fool was nothing. She stepped forward, placing herself between Alessandro and Marco. You're right about one thing. I am random. I'm nobody's trophy, nobody's pawn, and certainly not here for your entertainment. But I'll tell you what I am. I'm the woman who worked 3 jobs to put herself through culinary school, who earned every scar on these hands, who built a reputation in one of the hardest industries in the world without a family name to hide behind. Her voice grew stronger with each word. The room had gone completely silent. So yes, I'm random. I'm unexpected. And I'm exactly the kind of person who terrifies men like you, because I don't need anything from anyone to prove my worth. Marco's face twisted with rage. He lunged forward, but Alessandro was faster. In one fluid motion, he stepped in front of Zara, catching Marco's wrist mid-swing. You touch her, and it won't be business anymore. It will be personal. The threat in Alessandro's voice was unmistakable. Security finally reached them, hauling Marco backward as he shouted curses in Italian. Mrs. Caruso appeared at Zara's side, her hand finding the younger woman's arm. That, she said quietly, is how a Caruso woman handles herself. Zara's heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She turned to find Alessandro staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite name. We need to talk. His voice was rough. Now, he led her through a side door into a private study. The moment the door closed, he turned to her. That wasn't part of the agreement. You didn't have to defend yourself like that. Actually, I did. Because unlike everyone else here, I'm not afraid of men who use intimidation to feel powerful. I face them every day in my kitchen. Alessandro ran a hand through his hair, his careful composure finally cracking. You're nothing like I expected. Good, Zara replied. Neither are you. The study was lined with leather-bound books and smelled of aged whiskey and cedar. Alessandro poured 2 glasses of amber liquid without asking, handing one to Zara. I didn't hire you to fight my battles. Zara took the glass, the crystal heavy in her hand. You hired me to pretend to be your girlfriend. Girlfriends defend their partners. I was just playing the role. Were you? The question hung between them. Zara met his eyes, those dark depths that had seemed so cold when she first saw him but now held something warmer, more vulnerable. Alessandro set his glass down, moving closer. When Natasha suggested I needed someone on my arm tonight, I thought it would be simple. Find an escort service, pay for discretion, get through the wedding. But then I tasted your risotto, and I knew you were different. It's just rice, Alessandro. No, it's passion. It's art. To someone who understands that the details matter, that excellence isn't negotiable. He was standing directly in front of her now. My whole life, people have wanted something from me. My name, my money, my connections. You're the first person who looked at me like I was interrupting your real work. Zara's breath caught. Because you were. I had lamb chops on the line. His laugh was unexpected, genuine. See? That's what I mean. He reached up, his fingers ghosting along her jawline. This was supposed to be transactional. 6 hours. $15,000. Go home, never see each other again. That was the deal. The deal changed the moment you stood up to Marco. The moment my grandmother looked at you like you were already family. The moment I realized I've been lying to myself about why I really walked into your kitchen tonight. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. Alessandro, I didn't need just anyone. I needed someone real. Someone who wouldn't be impressed by the money or scared of the name. Someone who would look at this circus and see it for what it is. A bunch of broken people pretending they have it all figured out. And you think that's me? I know it is. His thumb traced her lower lip. The question is, what do you think? Zara should have stepped back. Should have reminded him this was business. Should have protected herself from whatever this was becoming. Instead, she closed the distance between them. The kiss was inevitable, like the final course of a perfect meal. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and Zara felt something crack open inside her chest. Something she'd kept carefully locked away while building her career, her reputation, her armor. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. I don't do fake very well, he whispered. Neither do I, Zara replied. Then let's try something real. Outside the study door, they could hear the wedding celebration continuing, the orchestra playing a waltz, glasses clinking in toasts. But in this moment, they existed in their own world. The grand opening of Caruso and Williams was everything Zara had dreamed of and nothing she'd expected. The restaurant occupied a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, with exposed brick, Edison bulbs, and an open kitchen where diners could watch the magic happen. Tonight, the dining room was packed with food critics, family, and friends who'd watched this impossible journey unfold. Zara moved through her kitchen with the same precision she'd had that night at Bella Notte. But now there was joy in every motion. Her brigade had tripled in size, and the menu was a fusion of her grandmother's soul food recipes and traditional Italian techniques. A marriage of worlds that shouldn't have worked but somehow created something extraordinary. Braised short ribs with creamy polenta and collard greens. Shrimp and grits with saffron cream. Oxtail ragu over fresh pappardelle. Each dish told a story of two families, two cultures, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. Chef, your husband is here. Zara looked up to see Alessandro entering through the kitchen door. The same way he'd done that first night, except now he belonged here. He'd traded the mafia connections for legitimate business, using his family's resources to back restaurants run by chefs who deserved a chance. The transition hadn't been easy. There'd been threats, complications, family members who'd cut ties. But he'd done it. For her. For them. For the life they wanted to build together. He crossed the kitchen and kissed her, ignoring the whistles from her staff. Your grandmother just finished her third plate of the oxtail ragu. She's telling everyone it's almost as good as hers. Zara laughed. That's grandmother code for it's perfect, but I'll never admit it. She also asked when we're giving her great-grandchildren. Zara turned back to her station, plating a perfect dish. Tell her the kitchen is my baby for now. Alessandro's hand found hers, the simple gold band on his finger catching the light. You know, I never thanked you properly for that night. You paid me $15,000. Not for that. For seeing past everything else. For being brave enough to be real when everyone else was playing a role. He pulled her close, despite the heat of the kitchen, despite the dozens of orders waiting. You saved me, Zara Williams. We saved each other, Alessandro Caruso. Through the kitchen window, Zara could see the dining room. A sea of faces, black and white, young and old, wealthy and working class, all brought together by food and love and the belief that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected places. Marco called. Alessandro said quietly, "He's been sober 6 months. Wants to apologize." Zara considered this. "What did you tell him?" "That I'd think about it. That forgiveness takes time. That I'd ask my wife." "Good answer," she smiled.